art touches you when you least expect it to. You see something and it motivates you to understand something, not only about yourself, but the rest of the world. It will give you a certain protection. It will give you a feeling of life in itself. Well, actually, I'm an Englishman, and born in 1942 in a place called Farnham, Surrey. And because my grandparents had retired and were living in a place called Torquay, which has been nicknamed England's California, I grew up there, next to the sea, the forests, and the granite rocks of Dartmoor, and I had a very nice youthful years there. I think what really fascinated me was when I was 9 years old and I won the first prize in one of the younger schools, where we were all allowed to make a figure, something from Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. And I decided I should make Happy. And I was so engrossed in making this thing that I had no idea that it was like a competition. And at the end of the afternoon, when everybody assembled all of their little figures, it appeared that I got the first prize, and I thought, well, that was a lot of fun. Clay is normally brought down to an estuary, and it's taken a few million years to produce this sort of sedimentation, which can vary a great deal depending on the sort of mountainous area it comes from. I have, to great help, I have what we call a pug mill in English. It's a machine that mixes all the clay up. So, in certain cases, I'm having to prepare my own bodies, which means different sorts of clay. So if I'm buying, like I say, porcelain from this part of the world, or importing this sort of stoneware from another part of the world, I can add to it with the knowledge that I have about these materials. And so I mix all of this into a new mixture which becomes my recipe. And then you have to wedge it. You have this physical process of, like standing in a bakery or something, making loaves of bread. The idea now is that by wedging in a certain way, you are extruding possible air bubbles. If you have an air bubble locked in the clay and it goes up to a certain temperature, it will automatically blow itself out. That's the end of your beautiful vase. How long did you work on that? Oh, that was a shame you missed the air bubble. from my experiences in China and Japan and Korea, and especially being something of an Englishman, and I thought that I could try and involve something of the natural culture around here, the rocks, you know, what grows beautifully here, the great ferns, you know, a lot of wildflowers which I'd never seen ever in England. I thought perhaps I could go out and adopt them. Everything you sort of believed in a sense about nature, you have the opportunity to participate in. I allow the grass to grow. I mean, there are thousands of different plants which you can at one point in your life at least go down on your knees to and have a look at. I could hear this sort of strange noise out there. I heard it several times for a couple of days. And then I realized that, of course, it was some sort of an animal. I decided late one afternoon I'd go out and try and find it. I couldn't find anything. And later in the evening I heard it again, and I thought, well, I'll go out and have another look. And finally I see this little creature coming on, you know, wobbly legs, and it's about, you know, it's like a cat with long legs, very, very thin, all the speckles on the back, and I realized, wow, I found this wild deer. And when I picked her up, she was covered in ticks and all sorts of parasites, and she looked like a mess. I cleaned her up, I took all these parasites and bugs off her. And then Lillian, Princess Lillian, grew up with us here. She got bigger and bigger and bigger, you know, and she got closer and closer to me. And finally I had this amazing link, a sort of telepathy. She could feel in a sense that, you know, now I was going out looking for her and she would come, or I could call her and she would come. And there it started. After 2 years, she came skipping into the sitting room and running around the kitchen. And she was pregnant. I went out and called her, and she called me back. And in that moment, I realized that she'd gone to exactly the same places where I found her. And she came skipping out of the grass there, and she had this little guy running behind her, you know. The little baby came up to me. He'd just been born, and it was totally accepted me immediately. And she sort of looked at me like, you know, and then she was gone again. And she got a second one out there. So then I brought them, had them both home, and a new cycle began again. And when it's complete, these forms you're making, you allow it now to dry. Now the drying process is depending obviously on how much clay you have there. You know, if you have small things, obviously they dry very quickly. But when you're throwing these pieces that I enjoy making, and you have 50 kilos or up, it can take this process up to a year in order to get all the water out. I believe I have this soundness of heart to feel that the earth is beneath my feet and the grass is not greener in the next guy's garden after all. But if you settle and you grow roots, everybody will have a back garden, and in your back garden you will appreciate that this world around us is paradise. When you see all those leaves waving, you think, wow, it's an incredible force out there. It's things that we don't understand. It's things we can't basically control. And why should we even try? We can protect ourselves against it today. We have the technology for this self-preservation, but we also have the technology to blow ourselves right off the face of paradise. I believe we're living in paradise, but we somehow lost contact. When you're making a glaze, you have to know basically why it works. You take all the basic elements, what the planet is made of. You have to know what all of these different things do at temperatures. Then you put them together as explained one on one. Then you put 3 together. Then you try 4 together. You see what happens. When you've got what we call a basic glaze, a base recipe, then you have to understand how you affect this with color. And now we go into the metal. There's titanium, there's copper, there's manganese, there's iron. It's a long list. And each of these metals reacts in a different way when it's put into the glaze. And then you can see what it does, how it interacts. And from that, you can change the spectrum of your art. You can create your own palette, just like a painter. from the moment you start firing it. If you calculate 16 hours, in my case, to get to the maximum temperature, then allow yourself 1 week of cooling, then that looks like a glaze firing. Just don't go over before. You know, don't be impatient. Tell yourself that, you know, there's got to be something. At least one piece is going to be good. And if you get one piece out which is spectacular, be grateful. You know, most of the things I make, it's an individual collection each time. It's all unique pieces, so every firing varies. There's never two packings the same. It's not like industry where you have 10,000 dishes which go through, or dinner plates that just go through this tunnel of them. Here you have to balance it, and you have to space it, and you make sure that it has small porcelain figures perhaps underneath to raise it so it doesn't stick on the plate, for example. You have to be very, very accurate. So each packing is like put in there and you're saying, well, okay, it's in balance, it looks good, let's go for it. Let's see what we can do now, huh? She went out of here in the morning. Her babies walked out with her. They were running around in the garden. It was a normal, beautiful morning. They were skipping around and enjoying themselves. And later in the afternoon, I went over to the firing studio, and I just heard an impact. And something inside me said, my intuition said to me, oh God, you know, something happened out there. But whatever it was that hit her, and it was a truck, just kept going. And of course she didn't come home that evening. Then I had to go out and look for her. And the next morning I found her, what was left of her. There's not much left after a 40-ton truck. If you look at a painting, if you look at a pot, if you look at a sculpture, if it touches you, then that's what art is about. I don't make two things the same ever. I can, of course. I mean, I have the ability, but I don't see any point or intention in just illustrating yourself or copying yourself. I'm looking for this challenge. I would like to make things better than I ever made before. I can experience cold nights, for example, in London when I lived there, or in Tokyo when I lived there, but here in Sweden it's like hibernation almost, you know, you're almost fighting to stay alive here because some nights here are unbelievable. I've been hacking away at this shit for the last 30 years, excuse me ladies and gentlemen, but you know, sometimes it is shit and it sucks. Uninspired is when you can't pay your bills, you know, when they come and cut off your electricity, when you got nothing to eat, and, you know, when you're having a bloody miserable time, actually. That can happen. That can definitely happen to you as an artist. Once you've started to produce something in clay, you have to give it constant attention. If the window is open, if there is a door open, you know, what the temperature is in the room. If you put it in the kiln, wait until you get up to around 400 degrees, folks, you're going to have quite a bang. I've seen enough of suffering out there. There's a saying that in order to be a saint, you really have to have visited hell first. Then you know the difference. Believe me, hell hurts. When you're unhappy, when you're miserable, when your health is going down, and when there's nobody out there you can rely on or trust, that's a real sad place to be in. So the choice is up to you. Nature's always playing tricks on us because nature is something unpredictable. When you see things at a distance and it doesn't touch you because you've never been there, does this still stop you from saying to yourself, maybe I can make a difference? Nature is there to guide us. It is a reflection of what we're doing to it as to what it's going to give to us, because without it we're all going to die. You have to respect it. You have to respect nature for this extraordinary nature that it has. It's one of the larger things from the series I made in 1994, I think it was. Porcelain stoneware combination. It's thrown in 3 sections. The largest section you see in here is around about 80 kilos thrown on a kick wheel. In fact, all of it is made on a kick wheel. And you can see I've had to put them together, so I've sealed them with silver so that they will be inseparable for the future. I'd say it's round about 200 kilos. And when I made it originally in the studio, it was 2 meters 5. And during the firing process, of course, each section shrinks, but of course it shrinks so that it's supposed to fit. The working time, physical working time, is about 1.5 years for me on a piece this size. It's because of the drying process. It has to dry absolutely perfectly, each section, so that they fit exactly. We're all here at the opening of my final collection of work for this summer collection. The work has gone through the last of the firing processes, the glaze firing. I think I've reached a temperature of between 1380 and 1400 degrees on this firing. And as you'll see the seals fall off the door, none of us have ever seen what's in here. Of course, I know in a form what I have in there, but I have no idea as to the finished result. It's like, you know, in the hands of the divine, so to say. So let's start and move it a little, huh? Ooh. So now I'm going to have a look anyway. Ooh. Ooh. Holy schmoly. This one is from 93. It's in white stoneware, which is a mixture of porcelain and stoneware together. And it's fired basically at my 13 to 1450 degrees. The difference between the two with this incision glaze is that this one has in fact received a little higher temperature, and you can see that the gloss or the glow on the incision has melted into the structure or the form in, I believe, a very acceptable way. Again, it's a very simple motive from nature, and I think the form is, it's a part of our planet. After having visited several people in Korea, they showed me this incision technique where they not only cut the clay out, but they're putting other white clays inside of the cuts that you make. This one is called Sisyphus' Solution. And if we remember the old myth of Sisyphus, he was always trying to get this stone up the mountain, and every time he got to the top, the stone fell down again, I think now we're changing many of the old myths, that today we're living in a technological world, and I think I helped him a little because the rock is up on top of the mountain, and with our aid and our attention, we will be able to create miracles together with this incredible technology we have today. Smash and grab. Smash and grab. Pretty. It's all handmade. It's not made on a wheel like many of my pieces, but it's modeled, and it's all made in porcelain. I think the largest section, which is this piece here, that's probably one massive piece, probably around 20 odd kilos, 25 kilos maximum. And it has very much to do with nostalgia, you know, when you're growing up by the sea. It's going to be showing you a part of yourself which you want to reinvestigate, so to say. You want to see things from the past, the present, and then perhaps you're going to change something for the future. At the moment, I think we've got some very nice pieces here. I mean, within a few seconds of taking them out, I feel that the glazes have melted the way I wanted. Some of them are a little exceptional. The largest piece here, that with I think a very fine red inslug, will have to be repaired like as they did in China all those years ago. You know, they used to, if you find a dish with a small crackle in it, or a small split in it, and it doesn't spoil the dish by working on it, then of course you can fill this object with silver, and then you will have an entire piece again. This one here is very nice. This has gone through second glaze process now. In other words, it's had 3 firings. I think I leave this one the way it is now. I don't think I'd like to go further with that. The smaller ring, I think that's very nice in this Chinese crackle celadon. The globe in the front, I would say that's very, very nice glazing effect. The texture on it is very nice. Very easy to touch. Same with this here. This is very pale. Almost looks like earthenware, but it is a porcelain. And this one here, well, I've seen things like this before, but this is quite nice. So yes, I'm satisfied. Very satisfied at this point. There's not everything which comes out and turns itself into gold somehow, but this is pretty impossible. I have to break it off with an iron bar or something. It's a shame because some of the glazes are rather nice there. But yeah, that's just how it goes sometimes, you know. You can't win them every time. So some years ago, I got invited to somebody's home. As I looked across this sitting room with some beautiful objects in there, I could see on this glass table this old Chinese urn, an old Chinese vase with the lid on it and the top. And I went up to this table and I looked at this vase and I thought, wow, you know, definitely Chinese. And I was very careful. I picked it up and I kept the lid together with the vase and I turned it around and I thought to myself, wow, if I had made something like this, I probably would have put a little extra doodle-oot over there or, you know, dot here or something or other. I wonder which period of China it was from. And I turned this thing upside down. I almost dropped it right through the glass table because in the bottom it said Carl Cunningham-Cole.